Hi everyone, we're here another week at Mutant Watch, and today we're gonna talk about the X-Men movies, the XMCU. I think it's called right in a lot of places, and these movies started in the year 2000, just after Blade, and following a little bit on that change in superhero cinema, and they have finished because Disney has bought Fox. So right now we are talking about like a closed universe and all the movies from there, and we're gonna go through like what do we think about every movie. And today we have with us Gabriel, Travis, and Seal. You can follow Seal and Lesbian Jubilee. And I don't know the handles of you both, but Travis is easy.
It's
So
just my name, so.
yeah,
I'll be
okay,
honest, I don't even remember my handle, so it's okay.
yeah, that's fine. So okay, let's go.
This week on Mutant Watch.
So okay, I'm gonna get this out of the way because there's no way I can discuss these movies without mentioning that at least four of them are directed slash produced by an alleged pedophile. So that's something that talks very badly of these movies, and I hope that doesn't happen with forward X-Men media that we have in the future. And I think the best approach, Gabriel and I were discussing before how to like talk about these movies, and I think the best approach is like we go through each one of them and tell a little bit how we feel about, and maybe then we can relate it to other things and talk about what could be happening in the future of X-Men movies and what should happen that hasn't happened in these movies, etc. And yeah, I think that's a good way. So first of all, what do you all think of the first movie, X-Men?
I'll jump in first, I guess. So it's been a bit since I rewatched the first X-Men movie, and I am a little worried to just see if it aged. But I do remember that it was in its own way, it was very revolutionary. It kind of really opened the door for superhero teams. I know that Blade was the first Marvel movie, but it to me at least, Blade never really felt it felt more like a vampire movie than a superhero movie, even though Blade is in fact a superhero. Um, and I do think that the X-Men did definitely open the door for what became the MCU. It was fun. It was my childhood. I loved it. It was everything I wanted at the time, however old I was in the year 2000. Um, and I do think that it is historically a big thing. Whether or not it aged, I'm going to leave to you guys because it's been a couple of years for me.
Yeah, I remember I watched that movie, I think, pretty soon after I started reading X-Men comics, and I really liked it. I always have liked Wolverine as a character, and I liked him in that movie. Um, I thought the part where he says, like, or somebody asks him, like, does it hurt when the claws come out? He says, like, it always hurts. I remember I really liked that part, even though it's like sort of cheesy. I think it's like the right kind of cheesy, maybe. So yeah, I have a fondness for that movie.
Yeah, I probably feel more nostalgic towards it than a lot or warmer to it than a lot of the other movies. I think it's a very careful movie, and it felt careful at the time. In retrospect, that was probably really good for it. It's very careful not to be too superhero-y, not to be too bright, not to be too confusing. And I'm old enough that I was coming out of we'd already had the Incredible Hulk on TV, and I'm not a special effects person. Like, I really don't care how realistic the effects are, how good effects are. So Hulk on TV felt like the Incredible Hulk to me. I was like, that's the best we're ever going to see, is a guy painted green. Or the Captain America movie that Albert Pion did. That felt like, it didn't get a theatrical release, but it still felt like a movie to me. It was a movie. So I didn't feel like there was this revolution of the X-Men we're finally seeing superheroes on TV, movies, Marvel superheroes, which like Wizard and other magazines were very big on. This was a revolution. So the marketing was there, and I think for other fans it was probably there. I didn't feel it that way. I went and saw it and I was like, it's a nice little movie that has some big set pieces.
Yeah, so I think I kind of right now, as opposed to the time that I first watched it, I think I really really like it the first time I watched it, and it's also because like I was impressed by it, and I was like, I don't know, I was like very little, and I liked superheroes a lot, so that's one of my first introductions to superheroes, so that was big for me. But I think now I see it that, like Travis said, it isn't exactly like a superhero thing. It's like I see the similarities with things like Blade or Matrix or stuff like that, in a way that it's mostly focused on like action, on like, and that for sure has like influenced the stuff that has come later, like the MCU and etc. But I'm I don't know. I just feel very nostalgic about this movie. Like every time I watch it, I feel like this nostalgic feeling. Although there's things I really, really, really don't like about the movie. One of them is the weird like the crush that Rogue has on Wolverine, and yeah, that's weird, and that really, really like draws me off of this movie. And I'm like glad that the next movies don't play a lot on it, and that's why I like it a little less than the second one. And yeah, we can talk about the second one because I feel like I have more stuff to say. And X2, what do you all think about X2? I can start for a chance if you all want. Yeah, so I think X2 is like one of, I think, my favorite of these movies, and I think it's because it kind of talk about things that superhero movies in cinema have not talked about a lot after it, and it's like this thing with power and marginalization, and like the movie really really in some moments dips deep into like the mutants as gay, kind of like as a metaphor for gay people, which is not the only reading that you can make, but yeah, the movie that really really does that. And I wish like I'm conflicted about it because on one hand, I kind of wish that other movies have like core messages that were like as much about um, how do you make change in society, which I feel like it's a thing that X2 like grapples a little bit with, not a super lot, but for Hollywood it's a lot for me. And there's not a lot of superhero movies that actually talk about like marginalization and change, and how you do that. And I don't know, that I like about the movie, and I like a lot like some interaction between characters, like the Mystique line that we shouldn't hide who we are was like is one of my favorite moments in like any superhero movie. And so I'm very very like biased towards X2, like, but I want to know what you all think.
For me, X2 was kind of the start of it going down. I am a hardcore Logan hater, like one of my least favorite characters in the entirety of Marvel. And X2 is where, like, yes, he was a main character, the main character in the first one, but it felt like in the second movie is where it started to feel a lot more to me like the X-Men were just Wolverine's backup dancers.
Yeah.
The whole plot of X2 is focused on Wolverine's past. And it's where things start. I started to like it less. But that aside, there's a lot of good in that movie that I enjoyed. But also, I was just not a bright child apparently, and so far deep in the closet that aside from that one coming out scene, I missed the gay metaphor in that entire movie. Um, so I missed out on like getting that side of it. So I guess I do need to sit down and take another look at it. But it was enjoyable. It was nice. Um, yeah, I liked it. It was okay.
So I'm very conflicted with X2. I don't like X2, but there are scenes in it that I think are fantastic. The we shouldn't have to
Yeah.
hide scene, the have you just tried not being a mutant. There's a scene with Mystique and Magneto where they're making fun of Rogue, and it's the meanest fucking scene in an X-Men movie. That is the most villainous thing in an X-Men movie, because in the first movie, they kidnap her, they torture her. She's got that streak of white in her hair now, so she's scarred because of them, and she's a kid. And they're just making fun of her hair, sitting there together, and it's so bitchy. And so there are scenes that I love. I don't. The actual plot of the movie and as it develops, I get tired very quickly and quit paying attention. I don't like what they did with Nightcrawler and the self-hate stuff. And there's a weird balance with his Catholicism that I like in the comics. And I like it more when he's like a weird Catholic mystic rather than he's got this solemn seriousness that must be explored through apparently cutting shapes into his body in the movie. I was not into that part. Uh, Aside from the movie as a movie, I was in Southern California when that movie came out. I was in LA a lot. I was living part-time in WeHo, and everybody was talking about the director and parties he would throw. And we were teenagers, and that was the thing, is you'd go to those parties and he was going to set you up, and they would fly you in a helicopter to a party. And how fucking awesome is that? Because you're 17, whatever, 16 years old, and you're getting flown out to this party and everybody's gay and it's amazing. And even at the time, having just come out of my teens, it was really creepy and really uncomfortable. And I don't know how much of that is true and how much is people bullshitting. We all bullshitted. I'll freely admit that we all bullshitted back then. So I don't know, was he involved? Was it somebody he was involved with? There was a television show online that he was involved with around the time, and everybody talked about that. And that show was about a young gay teen who was taken in by two older gay men and given this fantastic wealthy life where he had whatever he wanted. And I remember kids and young people being excited about that, and we'd all talk about that, like that's the future of television on the internet, and that's the future of queer life, and that's this and that. And that's aged so poorly for me that when I watch the movie, that's really what I'm seeing, are scenes with young actors who have since come out and said, they promised me the moon and look, they just wanted to fuck me. Or they this and this happened. So I have a hard time watching it on that level, just rewatching the movie.
Yeah, I honestly I watched it a while ago, and for some reason this movie is just kind of like a blur in my mind. Like I just remember like Nightcrawler trying to kill the president and then some other things. But I remember I was like when I was watching it, I was like really annoyed, but like in a very petty way, just annoyed by like all the heterosexuality. Like I think Wolverine like kissing Jean, but it's actually Mystique. And then, like, I think there was something with, like, Nightcrawler and Storm. I just remember, like, these aren't the people who should be kissing. It should be the other people who are kissing. And so then I was just annoyed by it on that level.
One other thing that sticks out to me for X2, and this is I'm probably like one of the only people who read this book, but the novelization of the movie was surprisingly good. it was able to take like the events of the movie and make it more global. Because they added characters into this movie for the sole fact of like how the movie started and how the movie ended. So when all the mutants are like in intense pain, they like threw in a whole bunch of Easter eggs. Like there was a member of the Secret Service who was trying to fight back Nightcrawler, who was a mutant whose name I can't remember. And I think you got Gambit in there, and I think you had Psylocke in there. And it was just nice little. It made it bigger than the movie did. And I would have liked to have seen that on screen.
Yeah, straight Mystique especially is really frustrating because that's an effort that's being made. And it is part of that being safe about things. Like there's a lot of queer coding, especially in X2, but I can see why people would miss it. Even queer people are going to miss some of it because it's very safe. It's very, if you're primed for it, it's there. And if you're not primed for it, you get straight Mystique.
Yeah. Yeah, I think definitely the movie plays onto the metaphor part, and what you actually see is like a lot of heterosexism. It's just metaphorically gay somewhere, but it's not like happening actually.
Was that also the movie where like Rogue was dating Bobby, but then like Bobby had feelings for Kitty or something?
That's the third
That's the
one. That's
third
the
one.
Oh, okay.
that's the next one. One of
Which
the
one?
many plot lines of that movie.
I think that that triangle is made poorly. Like it should be different. I like the triangle, but the people that like each other are different, and Iceman likes no one. Poor guy.
X2 is who's the mutant? Who's the fire mutant?
Pyro.
Pyro. It's
Pyro.
Pyro in X2, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where he comes in.
Okay.
Yeah, I like one thing about Pyro in X2 is that he lives with the bad guys. That whole thing for me, like really, I really like it. That's a cathartic moment for me. Because like it's someone turning into the bad side, which is kind of the in this movie is kind of the liberation side. Although the third one really scratches this up. But okay, so anything else? Okay, so the third one, the last one. And before we arrive to the last one, I want to say because I didn't say my controversial opinion, that I really like Anna Paquin as Rogue. Because she's one of my favorite rogues, and I'm happy to defend that if it's necessary.
That version of Rogue gets a lot of hate because it's not the super strong flying Rogue that people saw in the animated series and was active in the comics. I like that they took her to her origin and only had her have her original power. Yes, it is not the Rogue that people would have been used to, but it's still Rogue in her own way.
Yeah, I truly believe that that's a really good adaptation because it's different from what you get from the comics. You don't get the same thing, but you get the core like fears and the core things that make her character interesting, and I like that. I like her more in the second and the third movie than in the first one. All that is worth.
I mean, she was barely in the third. No, yeah, she was barely in the third movie. She like vanishes. I did not like her in the third movie at all, but I'll wait for us to get to there to complain about that one.
Yeah, okay, the third movie, The Last Stand. Get there.
So the problem to me with The Last Stand is I feel like there were so many plots, so many storylines. It should never have been one movie. You have the plot of The Cure, you have the plot of Dark Phoenix, you have the love triangle between Bobby Rogue and Kitty Pryde. You have Colossus there for some reason, even though he does not speak in the whole movie. You have the storyline with Angel, and it's just so much happening, and none of it really lands all that well. I feel like it could have been a really good trilogy on its own, but it just misses the mark. And one of the ways that for me that it misses it the most is Rogue. The the way she literally just ups and vanishes halfway through the movie, and then just comes back and she's like, "Hey, I'm not a mutant anymore," and that's it. Like that's just it. Like it's never really fully addressed. I do think that it did have nuggets of what could have been good. And I know it's pretty much a meme now, but like the scenes where Storm is trying to tell everyone not to give up their gift, and it's like she's talking to a walking furball and a woman who kills with her touch, and she can fly, and she's like, "Enjoy your gift." It's like, I would if I could do that, but I am going to be a virgin forever without killing someone. Like, obviously different scenario, and it's just over Storm's head. And I think that that could have been something they could have done more on, but they didn't. They just kind of let it sit there like we were supposed to buy it, and it just missed the mark on in every single way. It just missed the mark. But I did like Phoenix's Doc. I like the Doc Phoenix outfit in this movie. I think that was a cool look. And that's pretty much the main thing I liked about it.
I think, with Last Stand, these are all really, really white men movies. You can tell, you can look at any scene in them and you're like, a white man directed this. And I would love to see in the future, them take any other route just to see what the hell happens. And Last Stand to me is like the whitest, mannest movie that they've done. It's painful to watch, and I get frustrated with some of the stunt casting. I'm still not sure, and I love Patrick Stewart. Patrick Stewart is a wonderful human being. He's a fantastic actor. He is Charles Xavier because people were like, we need a bald actor who can speak good. And it was, it's that fan casting thing. And so they rewrote the character to be like, oh, sure, he's got a British accent. Why? Who the hell knows why? We'll figure it out later. And they move on. But by the time we get to Last Stand and we have Kelsey Grammer as Beast, try to imagine Kelsey Grammer in that Beast makeup saying any line from any comic before, 2002. You can't read the dialogue in his voice, and he can't do it. Pick up a New Defenders issue or an Uncanny X-Men issue or an X-Factor issue from the 80s and read that in that. It's not the right range. It's not the right tone. And so the character comes off as not the same character. Whether or not it's a good performance, I can't say because the dialogue sucked and the way it was shot was whatever. It's just not a well put together movie. It feels like they went, first draft, best draft, we're going to shoot this, cut it, and we're done. So I can't really get into Last Stand for a lot of reasons, but the biggest is it's just that white gaze that continues maybe even more insidiously in the movie following it.
Kind of, you are complete. I completely agree. Like it is like the whitest one of it, but also, and this is a sad thing I can say, is if you don't count Days of Future Past and the throwaway characters from the future, it has the most people of color with Storm and Callisto, who they make fight each other, and then Psylocke and Kid Omega, who barely matter, which is still more than any of the movies before that and most of the movies that come after it. But still, you're right. Yeah, such a white movie, like the core of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and they completely ditched Magneto. Like his evolution as a character in this last movie is like he's like turning completely evil, and it's a little bit like tiring. And some scenes is like when Mystic gets the power and Magneto is like, well, you're one of them now. It's like I don't really believe Magneto will be like, just superpowers, no mutant. Like that shit runs with me. Like it, I don't know.
I hate to admit it, but I think the idea of like the mutant cure is one of the better ideas of Joss Whedon's astonishing run. Like I think it's actually like a really solid idea, and I think it makes sense like to adapt that to a movie. Like I think that as like a central conflict for an X-Men movie like could work, but like you said before, it there's just too much going on in the movie, and it doesn't work as well as it could have, and it's a shame because like I think that sort of exploring the eugenics aspect of it could have been really neat. um it's been a while since I've seen that movie as well, but, like, I remember I saw, like, just a clip of, like, I think the angel scene where he, like, freaks out and flies away or something, and, like, in isolation, it's a cool scene, but, like, the movie is kind of a mess.
Oh God, yes. There is so much they could have cut from that movie to make it more coherent, but I feel like they just couldn't decide what story they wanted to tell, and it was all over the place. And I feel like nothing got resolved in the end with any of the storylines except surprise, Jean got murdered. That's the only resolution.
I think they wanted to sell a lot of toys too. Last Stand feels like a movie where they were like, we need, because like the first movie, it's a very small action figure line, especially for a superhero line. And I think by the third movie, they were like, we need to launch with 1 billion figures and have them each have it. And that's when we get all these characters who have no lines or one line, but they have a very distinctive look, which is a cool thing for the movie. But it really, I think, just plays into they wanted to sell action figures.
I would have been like, there's some of the like Arclight is in that movie, and Arclight does nothing except like one really impressive scene where she like takes out a bunch of people by clapping, and otherwise not really relevant to the movie. But nothing in the movie made it seem like she was supposed to be relevant. As opposed to you have Colossus, who was and Angel, who were plastered on every form of promotional thing there was. There was Colossus and there was Angel. And Angel storyline never meshed with the rest of the movie. And Colossus never, I think he said one word. Like the entire movie, I'm pretty sure he is walking, he has a TV on his shoulder, and Iceman comes up to him, he's like, have you seen Rogue? And he goes, no. And that's his only line in the entire movie. And I was talking to Dune about this before the show, and I do respect that they kept the actor they had in X2, who was glorified extra in that movie. So I don't know if maybe he just was not an actor. And they were like, you know what? You look like Colossus, just don't speak, and you can make it through this movie. And if that's the case, then like, sure, I respect that, but don't put him on any of the posters. Like, I was so excited to see Colossus, and I get no.
Well, and should we talk too about the director of Last Stand and homophobia and accusations of harassment on that film?
Oh, I didn't
I
know
didn't
that.
know
I didn't know about that either.
With
The harassment
Kitty.
part, I know a little bit because
Okay.
I know that Elliot Page had a really
Yeah.
hard time making that movie, and yeah,
The director apparently took it upon himself to harass the hell out of her and encourage other people to harass the hell out of him and to get other people on the film to harass the hell out of him.
Yeah.
That director also has a history of homophobic words and using slurs and other comments. So it's just weird coming off of two movies where we didn't really have a lot of openly gay directors, especially not a superhero movie. And, other problems aside, coming from two movies where you have a clear queer subtext and a gay director to that, it does feel kind of like a creative death knell in a way.
Yeah, I do believe like the handling of the whole mutant curse thing in this movie, it doesn't sit well with me, especially what happens with Rogue. Like what happens with like her just like taking the cure and that's it. And the whole thing, I don't think it's like really managed by someone that is thinking of the implications of that for like queer people in real life. And especially because the last movie was very like queer subtext, not any text, but like a lot of queer things. Like this one is like, oh, it's this one, it's this very with me, like the implications of the queer thing. And yeah,
I think
and
that
hmm.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that a queer director, a non-white director, a director who has disability of some kind, or almost any othering factor would have taken that part, that cure part, more seriously and broken it down in a different way. At the time that that came out, I had surgeries for intersex stuff all of my childhood. I was on hormone treatments in my early 20s, my teens, my early 20s. And, now there's a lot of things that are, politicized again, because things get politicized in waves of, should you allow hormone treatments in kids and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, it was really helpful to me, especially at the time. And so when I look at like a mutant cure, or you can take this thing and it can fix you, I'm like, I can't fucking walk. I needed hormone treatments for, physical reasons, health reasons. And so these cures, quote unquote, they're not taking away like a genetic, they're not taking away an ethnicity, they're not taking away a mental impulse, they're not taking away a basic identity, which you said about Magneto rejecting her. I think even had, the director or somebody in control been othered in some way, they would have looked at Magneto's role in that differently and how Magneto responds. It feels like that doesn't come down to the actors or even come down to that kind of the character. It comes down to who's controlling it. So the director, the screenwriters.
Yeah, it's true. And also one thing that I really don't like about this movie is okay, I don't like the movie in general, but there's some parts of it that I can like get behind some ideas, like the story of Angel. I kind of like it. I wish it wasn't like so out there, like it just happens, it doesn't have a connection to anything else. But one thing I really really didn't like is how they changed Dark Phoenix, how they turn something that in the comics is about like a cosmic force and made it like cheap psychology. Like it's not even how psychological things work in real life. It's not how dissociation works. And I I don't know. I didn't like that. That was like the worst adaptation possible of Dark Phoenix for me. Because like I I I don't have a lot of emotional connection to the story of Dark Phoenix, but at least one thing that I like about it and about the comic is that it doesn't delve into the whole stereotype of like two personalities and whatever, and it's like something different than that, and something that has like different meanings, even if it talks about trauma and etc. And yeah, I didn't like that about this movie. That's what fucks up the movie for me. Like the whole Dark Phoenix thing, every time she appears, is like it's what really makes this movie hard to like take into account.
And
Yeah.
this, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the way it's handled is just like really sexist.
Mm.
It's like, I don't know the right way to say this, but like it's almost sort of like funny to me in just how extremely ridiculous and sexist it is, and like how unaware they are of that. Like it's it's just so over the top that I kind of find it amusing. But yeah, it's really frustrating, especially like as a fan of the Dark Phoenix saga in the comics. It's like, okay, so they're wanting to adapt this storyline, but they throw out everything that's great about the story. So it's like, what is the point even?
Yeah.
It's kind of like they just wanted the concept, and then just it felt very much like they wanted to make it without ever actually reading the comic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's what it
Um,
feels.
and this is in no way near the level of all these other things that we're talking about, like representation and just like bad takes. but one of the lowest points of that movie for me was the Juggernaut and the fact that they took an internet meme,
Yeah.
that YouTube video, and they put it in the dialogue of this movie, and it hurt on the inside when he says the line. And I'm curious how that line would be received by someone now watching it for the first time who didn't see the viral YouTube or whatever video where they took it from. Also, I completely blacked out that Multiple Man was in that movie. I don't remember. I now in hindsight, I remember he was there. I don't know what he did, but he existed. And I wish he didn't, because I love the character and he existed in that movie.
Yeah, genuinely, like, I know a lot of like Jubilee fans are annoyed that Jubilee doesn't have more screen time in the movies, but I'm like, I'm glad she's not there because they would have butchered her.
Jubilee shows up for the I feel like it must be like the government mandated 5-second cameo in almost every X-Men movie. And it is I to this day believe that Jubilee's best scene is like the deleted scene, and I think it's X2, where she's just wandering a museum alone for no reason, and her powers go off for again no reason. I think that's the best Jubilee scene we've seen in the entire franchise.
I don't think I've seen that one, so I'll have to look it up.
It's like 3 seconds long.
See, my movie Jubilee is the Gen X Jubilee. So she's white and like 30 years old and in high school.
The Generation X movie is my favorite X-Men movie.
Yeah, same actually. It is a terrible, problematic movie, and somehow it is less problematic than the ones they put out in theaters.
You said you've not seen it, Sil?
Oh no, I have seen it.
Okay.
I have a fondness for it. It's like bad, but it's like fun bad, as opposed to like I think the later X-Men movies with like young Xavier and Magneto, those are bad, but like not even in a fun way. To me at least.
I need to watch it, and we can do a soda about it.
Yes.
Like a whole show only about that movie.
Yes.
That seems like easier than do a show about all the movies. Okay, so I don't know where to go from here, because like we can talk about the Wolverine movies and then about the rest of what the rest of the thing, or the other way around. I don't know what you all prefer.
Either.
I
don't know the order this stuff goes in.
Let's stay with the X-Men movies.
Let's stick with the X-Men movies. When we get to the ending, then we'll look at the Wolverine and Deadpool stuff.
Okay, Wolverine for the end, and Deadpool. I forgot about that. Okay.
I wish I did.
So the next one is X-Men First Class that Seal recently rewatched.
Yeah, I watched it for the first time last night.
What's for the first time?
It was really bad.
Yeah, I don't mind watching it for the first time now.
I think my favorite thing was when they were showing Angel Salvador and like her wings, but like when they weren't unfurled, they were like wrapped around her arms, and I thought that looked really cool, like design wise. I think that was my favorite part of the movie, and then pretty much everything else was really bad. But it is interesting to me how homoerotic it is, like in a very like action movie way, and a very like sexist way. I can definitely see like why that would appeal to some people, but it did not like rescue the movie for me or anything. But
I think, at the time, especially what we were asking as X fans were, can characters who aren't white do something impressive? Like Storm had that line in the first movie that falls flat about.
I love that line. I love that. It is so cheesy, but I love it.
It's like a terrible delivery, and it's a terrible place to put the line. And that's the best storm we got so far. And so what we were asking was like, can women have plot lines? Can women have dialogue that means something? Can characters who aren't white have dialogue that means something? Can they do something impressive? And instead, what they did is they jumped this movie back to the 60s. And, they play very much on this sort of shame sexuality thing with all of the women. And the angel scene, I love that look. I hate that scene so much that they take that character and they're like, that's the best we can do with her in this movie. That the best that they can do with Mystique is this sort of, I'm mad because I'm mad. And like all of the women in that movie, they just fall so flat. They're like cardboard cutouts in lingerie.
I'm gonna be honest, I completely forgot Mystique was in the movie until you mentioned her just now, because she's not my Mystique.
Yes, it's not Mystique. It's
She's
another
no one's
character.
Mystique. And
I'll be the unpopular opinion guy again. I don't mind that version of Mystique. I know that it is not a comic accurate version, and I know that they go in such a weird direction with her, but I kind of like that it is different. Of those three that are the core to that strand of movies, Mystique is my favorite. Like Xavier and Magneto in those movies get on my damn nerve real quick. But Mystique I'm okay with. So yeah, I like that Mystique.
It's sorry, is it okay if I say something? Okay, sorry, I just don't want to like talk too much, but it's just very insulting to me how like Mystique is very like inherently a very queer character, and they just like completely strip all of that away from her in the movies. Like they do it in the first movies, but then in this movie and the following ones as well. And it's like they take away like the queer, like the textual, like they take away like her thing with Destiny, but then like also the subtextual things that are like more baked into her character, like even with the shape shifting and like um well they take away that, well they like they don't do it well or like in a gay way, and it makes me mad.
They give Mystique not one, not two, but three different love interests, and they're all men.
Yeah.
And she's very much at the service of men. Her role in the movies is to be at the service of men. I do like the performances of Mystique. I like the performances of Mystique. But when you start to break it down, why is Mystique naked all the time, like in the first set of movies? That's not internal to the character. There's no psychological motivation. There's no political motivation there. That's servicing certain ideas. Why is she, Charles' lackey and then she's Magneto's lackey? Because. So it just kind of falls apart from me. I think even if I didn't know a comics character that I thought was superior, the way that that character is put together, it just feels like you could replace her with a cardboard cutout and they could speak, put the lips through the cardboard. It would be the same thing.
And it's also a little bit creepy to me how in the First Class movie she's like sort of Xavier's sister, but then like sort of in love with him. That is like a development I did not need, and I don't know why it's there, honestly.
I think that I would have loved it if they just left it at sister. I feel like that could have been a very interesting dynamic to take forward in the movies, and I did I blocked out that it got romantic at one point until Duna mentioned it a couple of days ago. Like I completely thought Mystique's only love triangle was Magneto and Beast, which is also weird. But yeah, she ended up like serving this weird role to be like the surrogate in Magneto and Xavier's relationship. Like, they can't love each other, but they can love the same woman, because that makes it not gay, but still very gay. It was weird.
And I almost, I would put real money on that's why that scene's there. That was not in an earlier draft, and that was something they came up with to, make sure that there's plausible deniability, because they knew what they were doing with Magneto and Xavier. That's very clear and very intentional. So slapping that beard on there, I think that was somebody said do that. Somebody advised, a screenwriter doing a pass.
And I think that jumping completely topic while on this movie, I think that we have to mention, because every X-Men fan has the same issue with this movie, and that is, how the fuck did Darwin die? It makes no logical sense. It is just, they just really desperately wanted to kill the black man,
Yes.
and it makes why? Why? And I feel like everyone who watches this movie knows that it makes no sense, but they did it anyway.
Oh, and I remember there being so much hope. Oh, the next movie, Darwin's going to come back, and you'll see, like, he'll be the focus of the next movie. And yeah.
Which I think is the problem with this trilogy, or however many movies of it is that I think First Class introduced potential with the students, or what the team, or whatever you want to call it, and it was characters that the average moviegoer who doesn't read the comics wouldn't have been familiar with. They're not going to know who Darwin is. Heck, a lot of comic book readers wouldn't have known who Darwin was. They wouldn't have known who Angel was. They might have known Banshee, but this was a funner version of Banshee that we haven't seen. And they even took the less popular Summers brother to make sure they had a Summers in the movie. And if they would have kept that team, I think it could have been something different and the kind of movies that I want them to make. But instead, they just brushed it aside to replace it with more Magneto, Professor X, and Mystique. And then killed them off panel later.
Yeah.
They're all dead. Like, if you pay attention, like, literally every person in that movie is now dead.
So,
Tiger.
a funny thing about this movie to me is that the first time I saw it, when I was a teenager, I really, really like it. Like, I like it a lot. And then, a few years ago, I decided to watch it with my girlfriend, because I really, really like it at that moment. And I was horrified by it. And I pretty much, I think I hate more every movie after this than this movie. But when I watched it with my girlfriend, I was like, how could I have liked it way back? And I think part of it is that I haven't read that many comics with Mystique on them. I didn't have like a clear vision of the character. So I was like, this is a little bit misogynistic, but like from one point of the movie to the end, but from this moment back, I could get behind like the idea of the character. But there's a moment from when she continues to her development through the next movies, and it's just like the whole thing about Mystique is like being like, I don't know how to say it, but like in relationship to men. Like that's the whole part of the whole storyline with Mystique and Magneto and Xavier. And it doesn't start like that at the beginning, or at least it could have not gone that route. But there's some point in this movie where it's just like the whole thing about Mystique from now on is how she feels about Xavier, Magneto, or Beast. And that's all that we know about her.
Or like even more, it's like it's how they feel about her. Like it's not even really about like what she wants or cares about as much. Like she's really just like a prop for them to like angst over.
And I think, being set in the 60s, that was part of a wave of movies and shows. Like that was a thing at that moment, and it was safe. Suddenly, bigotry is not about today, or the first two movies are in the near future, right? So it's not about today. It's not about tomorrow. It's about decades ago. Decades ago, we were bigoted and confused. Decades ago, we didn't know any better. It was that sort of politicking. And so they can treat women a certain way in that movie because they can just go, oh, well, it was the 60s. That's how it was. Was it really like that? Did women have no personality and no intelligence and no capability in the 60s? Apparently, because the movie says so. Was it really that white in the 60s? Apparently, because this movie says so. But you had like Mad Men, that whole sort of vibe at the time. And I think it really trades on that, maybe because the previous three movies pushed some of that a little too hard. And they don't even really push it, but apparently they pushed it like a little too hard for the rights owners, for Fox to be comfortable with this.
Yeah.
When I was watching the movie, I got a bit frustrated because, like, I do think that the connection of, like, hatred of mutants and, like, connecting that to, like, the Red Scare is, a really intriguing idea and could make a good movie, but they just, like, butcher it. And also, this is, like, not nearly as, like, problematic as other aspects of the movie, but when I found out that, like, the one lady was supposed to be Moira and they made Moira American, that just made me so mad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain choices that they make. Like, none of us care how older Havoc is than Scott. Doesn't matter. Nobody cares. It's Havoc. They put him in a movie. It's, whatever. There are certain changes that they can make. Does Charles Xavier have hair? Is he bald? We don't really care. But there are certain changes they make with ethnicities in these movies, with nationalities, with sexualities. And it's like, that's a whole different thing to shift up.
Yeah, now I can see that one reason why I probably like this movie is because I like this Magneto backstory better than the ones in the old movies. It's because it's more elaborated, and I feel like it connects more with it makes more sense for the character. It connects more, and it's a thread that I do like in these movies, but it's probably the only thread that I like. Like it's the thing that really, like, I think they could have done other things like with that much attention, but I feel like they only pay attention to like two characters, just Xavier and Magneto. So okay, so Days of Future Past. I hate this one, so it better not be me because I feel like I wasted like the time I watched this movie. I feel like it was wasted. For me, nothing happened. Like barely anything happened in it.
The best part is the end where Wolverine sees Jean and Scott again, and he's happy, and that's the only good part of the movie.
This is the big. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go for it.
This is the beginning for me of where, even if I've seen the movie, what I remember most are the ad campaigns. So this entire movie is summed up for me with Quicksilver eating a burger. That's the whole movie to me.
I mean, it's definitely for this movie and for Apocalypse, but more for this than for Apocalypse. They paid too much, like they put too much weight onto the scenes of Quicksilver and the music, and that was ridiculous for me. Like, okay, I guess
It started becoming a joke.
Yeah, and I didn't like it in this movie. So imagine in the next ones.
I really enjoyed half of this movie. Because you have there's the half in the future and there's the half in the past. And the half in the past, it's like they could have come up to me and said, who are your least favorite characters in every other movie? And let's just put them all together. It's like, let's take Wolverine and just throw him in with all the people you found boring in First Class, and let's just make that the movie. I like the concept of it because they wrote themselves into a corner with Last Stand, and this was their way of resolving it, but then also never doing anything with that potential that they put out there. But I like the concept of it if they would have continued that, which is now I'm finding a trend in all of these movies. The James McAvoy movies, it's always like, yeah, the next movie is going to be great. And then they just never do that. But I really love the future scenes. Making Kitty a time traveler was a weird choice, but they needed someone to do it, and I'm guessing including Rachel Summers would have just been too much to explain in one movie. So they put it all on Kitty Pryde, and sure, I like Elliot Page, why not? But the best part of this movie were the deleted scenes, the Rogue cut.
I
I
haven't watched it.
really love the Rogue cut, and I am still upset that they literally looked at the movie and went, wow, this is too long. Let's just cut an entire character out of this movie and pretend that she was never there. But I like the action scenes. I like that they included once more included characters that we wouldn't have known too much about, with Sunspot and Warpath and Blink and Bishop. And I do think that that final scene where everyone's dying again is just so epic. But once more, they just took all the characters and never touched them again. So it was once more disappointing.
Oh. Yeah,
This-
I need to watch the Rock Cut. I haven't watched it, but it's like my liking Anna Paquina's role fighting with how much I hated this movie. But
Just fast forward through all of the scenes that take place in the past, and I think you'll enjoy the movie more. Like just Elliot Page and Anna Paquin and friends, and Sean Ashmore. I liked him in those movies.
It just feels like the movie was like 4 hours long.
yeah,
Like, even thinking about rewatching the movie, I'm like, I don't have a week to watch this movie. I remember, like, I saw it in the theater, and I remember they had just barely, I think, gotten to the past, and I thought the movie was over. Like, I was already done. I was like, oh God, thank God the movie's over. It was like 20 minutes in.
Yeah.
Was this the one? Did they make Xavier an alcoholic? Because I remember
Yes.
that, but I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yes.
Okay,
They-
yeah, I didn't like that.
They made him an alcoholic, and then they also made him walk again by being addicted to drugs, which was something they
choice.
decided to do.
And was he upset his hair was falling out in this movie?
His hair fell
That's
out
enough.
in the next
the
movie.
The next movie. Okay.
We can talk about the next movie. So, Apocalypse. That was a movie.
For me, Apocalypse is where this weird timeline that they were putting together really made clear that it made absolutely no sense. Like, at all. Like, the first Class took place in the 60s, and that's where we meet Alex. But he still looks like he's 20 in the 80s. And that's where we meet Cyclops, who's like 18, 17 or something. But then he's still 17 in the next movie. It's just weird. Like, they clearly stopped trying to make sense with the timeline, starting with Apocalypse, despite just fixing the timeline. And it was confusing.
To be fair, that's kind of how comics are, though.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell me the age of anyone in an X-Men comic.
You only know when they turn 18, because that's when they start dating people older than them that they shouldn't otherwise.
Well, how old was Kitty when she started doing that? Because it was way before then.
Yeah, that's an exception.
Maybe we should be grateful that we didn't
Husk?
adapt that storyline in the movies.
Well, they hinted at the romance, it's not the age difference.
They did?
Yes, at the very, very ending, when it's all like Wolverine walking through the mansion and everything is perfect. And it's like, look, it's Scott and Jean. And look, Rogue and Bobby are back together. And look, Kitty is talking to Colossus, who is still not having any lines, but he's there.
He's a good listener. It must be romance. Yeah, I don't remember most of the Apocalypse movie, and like I know I watched it. I think I've watched it twice, and it just seemed like a mishmash of character, thing that happened, character. I remember the billboard ad. I remember that they put up the huge billboards of Mystique getting choked out, and people complained about those, and seeing those, and the director weirdly took up for the billboards like they're his responsibility, like they're art and it's expressing art, and if you hate billboards you hate art, and it's like it's a freaking billboard. So that made more of an impact on me than the actual movie did.
The movie, it was failed potential all over again. It's like they hinted in the trailers that Jubilee was going to be in it, and then they just I don't know, forgot her at home. I don't know if we ever have.
Jubilee and the others, they watch Star Wars, right?
They watch Star Wars, yeah.
Yep, and we got like this little hint of this friendship between Jubilee and Nightcrawler, which I was there for, and how she was like Jean's friend in this, and it was like, and then they leave, and I don't know why Jubilee stayed home. Like, they don't really, like, you're already taking other children. Why not take her? It really was a weirdness that they did.
Yeah.
See, I could love this movie if it was just like Jubilee slept in. You just see Jubilee like slap her alarm off the table, go back to sleep.
And they also had this. This the one that they had the weird Wolverine cameo, where they like break him out of a lab and then for no reason.
And Jean is there, and it's kind of creepy.
It's just it's a very much a why. It's only there for the cameo. Should have been taken out. It was odd. They just needed what's his name in every X-Men movie for at least a few seconds.
Well, I think once you had, the first set become the Wolverine show, and then once you had First Class and his cameo, it became that jokey thing. Same thing with Quicksilver, where they've got one gag for Quicksilver, so we're going to milk the gag. And that's what Apocalypse felt like. It felt like I saw it, and it was kind of like, well, I guess I'll wait till the next X-Men movie. It existed to be an X-Men movie because they needed one at that point. And that was it.
I like I said, there was potential in it. I kind of like the concept. Maybe I can't tell because it was executed so weirdly. I do like the scene where Jean is going one-on-one with Apocalypse. I do think that was a nice moment.
I'm very, very like bothered that they did that scene before the Phoenix entered Jean.
Well,
like
the impression I got was this was the starting point of what happens with Phoenix. This is where she starts getting that power jump that makes her noticed in the next movie. And like I get that.
Okay.
I also, and I don't know I don't know what the opinion on this is, but I do feel that Olivia Munn as Psylocke was wasted on this movie.
Yeah.
I think that was a good fit. I think that there's been like pictures of showing that she's a sign of the character and a fan of comics. And then this is it. And then once more, they let her live with that little tease of maybe she'll be back. And we never see or even hear of Psylocke ever again.
Didn't they make Psylocke like a Morlock or something?
There's two Psylocks.
Oh, okay.
Psylocke was in Last Stand, and all she did was teleport through shadows, which was a power of hers at some point, and then they killed her in that movie. So this was Psylocke version 2.0, just like we randomly got Angel version 2.0 or 1.0, because chronologically I guess it came first.
I don't like how they changed Cyclops' character because he okay, I actually don't really remember anything, but I remember being annoyed that they changed his character.
Yeah, I think the problem that the First Class movie has with Mystique here is all over the place. Cause like, yeah, cause like Nightcrawler doesn't feel like Nightcrawler, and Cyclops doesn't feel like Cyclops, and Beast already didn't feel like Beast, and they're just like people with random powers at some point.
I think that if they would have let the kids be the star of these movies, I think that Cyclops, we could have seen this insecure kid grow to be a leader. I like that Nightcrawler was more carefree than his doom and gloom X2 version.
Yeah.
And I did like the nod of when him and Mystique kind of share a look, like, something's familiar about you. I think that it could have been, but then they just got like choked out by the Mystique Professor X Magneto-ness of everything.
I think because I like to make fun of Cyclops, I actually really like the Cyclops in the first two movies because he's so embarrassing. And he has to know he's embarrassing himself sometimes, but he just keeps going anyway. And that's rare in a superhero movie, or at least was rare, especially then, was a rare kind of thing. And as they go along, I feel like almost everyone just gets more superhero, more supervillain. Magneto's the same kind of trajectory where like Magneto for the first couple of movies has a personality and like a life and things going on. And First Class, he's got the whole Nazi hunter thing, which is probably the most heroic thing until the missiles stop at the end of the movie. So that's good. But everything else is just this pushing him towards being he's the supervillain, he's the megalomaniac or whatever. And Cyclops gets kind of the opposite and becomes just there's more of this, he's just the superhero guy.
Right, like it's not character driven in any way. It's just doing like what is required for the plot, and like what's required for
Yeah.
the plot is like what the people making the movie think that the audiences want to see, and so it's very unsatisfying.
Yeah. I did like a little bit the things I remember about Magneto in this movie. I think he suffered a lot in this one. I think this is the one in which they kill
Everyone.
yeah. Yeah, I did like that part of the story, but I feel like it didn't like really get to like anywhere. Like he just like happened to like follow Apocalypse from there on, and then at the last minute he like changed his mind and was like, I gotta save my husband. But
Also,
yeah,
the weirdness they did with Quicksilver and Magneto in this movie just never
yeah,
landed. Like, I see what they were trying to do, but it was weird to do it here when and have his daughter get killed, and it just it wasn't done well.
yeah, yeah. This was a bad movie. We can agree. So I guess the next one is Dark Phoenix, right?
Is it?
That one
Yeah.
is the first one I saw in
Dark Phoenix.
theaters. And I wasn't actually planning to, but I think it was like there was a discount at the movie theater or something, so I was like, okay, I'll go see it. And I wore my I have like a Rachel Gray enamel pin, so I wore that because it's Dark Phoenix. But it was not a good movie, but like I wasn't expecting it to be a good movie, so I was like okay with that. But yeah.
Dark Phoenix was was a lot of weird choices they made with that movie, and I don't know why they did any of them. Rather than watching Dark Phoenix, I would love to watch literally anything that happened before that movie started, because it's like all the character development and all of the character relationships happened before the movie started, and we just are supposed to know it already. Like, the whole movie is based off of, like, the catalyst is Mystique dying and how much that means to Jean. Why? I don't understand. Like, I don't think they spoke in Apocalypse, and they had like one conversation in Dark Phoenix, and now it's like, I murdered my best friend. Really? Did you? And like, honestly, I don't watching that movie, I don't know why Storm didn't just say bye and just leave. Like, she has no tie to anything, and it is so confusing to me. And even the romance between Jean and Cyclops happened completely off panel. I think I'm not even 100% sure if they are an actual couple, or if they're like on their way to a couple, or if they were a couple and broke up. I don't know, because they never tell us. We never see it. It's they didn't do any of the character work in that movie at all for anyone.
What I found kind of frustrating is how they made the main villain a woman, and I think it was like supposed to be feminist, but it doesn't really work, I think, because I think like in the Dark Phoenix saga, like it is about like women being hurt by men specifically. And like I guess there are like other women complicit in it, like Emma Frost, but I feel like it is supposed to be about like the that like misogynistic violence maybe. So to get rid of that in this movie, it doesn't really work, I think. But then like she also wasn't really a woman, right? Like she was an alien. It was
I I
silly.
don't know. I don't know what she was. It was once more another weird choice they made. There was a lot of, and there was a lot of speculation about who she could be before the movie came out, and the answer was nothing. Nothing we were thinking of that woman was, and I'm still not sure exactly what she was now.
Yeah, I I like this one a little bit better than the last one, because I think at least on the parts that are like adapting the Dark Phoenix stuff and on Jean's character and what Xavier does to her and etc. I think that part feels a little bit better than the other movie. It feels like, I don't know, I'm not so mad at it. Like, at least I'm not angry, but I also didn't enjoy it a lot. And I have rewatched it like for this thing, and yeah, I don't know. I think it's the reason I like it a little bit better than the last time is that I don't hate watching it most of the time. And also the Dazzler scene was pretty sweet. Like the one in which she's singing in the middle of the forest and then Jean blacks out and etc. That whole scene like really did it for me. Like I wish the movie had more scenes that were like that one, because it feels very 90s and I really like that.
So I have not seen the movie. I just
Oh.
haven't had the energy to see it or the drive to see it. However, Gabe, if you described what you described just now, but didn't say ahead of time you didn't like it and it was bad, you described my perfect movie. I want to see a movie so bad where Jean Grey is heartbroken over the death of Mystique and Storm stands by her side because she can't quit her and she doesn't know why she can't quit her, but she's staying with her to the end. And there's a ghost woman who's never explained.
Okay, so me and Duna had a conversation where I think the way to make this movie and all the character motivations make sense is if you just say that Jean and Mystique were dating,
Yeah.
and Cyclops is busy mooning over Jean, and Storm is just there for Cyclops because she's the only one she talks to, and she's just waiting for him to wake up and realize Jean's a lesbian and date her. And I feel like that would just make everything in this movie just suddenly make so much more sense if they just. But it's weird. There's no motive. I don't get it.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the relationship between Mystique and Jean in this one, like Gabriel said, it only feels it fits if they're like suddenly like passionate lovers that have like they have fallen in love in 2 weeks and move off and move over to her house. That's the only way that the movie works.
Yeah, like I think there's a scene where Jean like goes to Magneto, who was actually I think dating Mystique at one point, and she's like she's more upset about the death than he is, and he's just like, "Oh, it sucks, but get out of my house." Like it's such.
Yeah, but Magneto doesn't know. Magneto doesn't know about Mystique that death at that point of the movie. I have
Oh, okay.
rewatched it and I know Magneto doesn't know. Yeah, Magneto is asking Jean in that scene, "Whose blood is this?" Over and over again, and Jean is like,
Oops.
so she
And also,
doesn't do it.
and also, Mystique's death was just weird in this movie. Like she literally got killed by a white picket fence. It is just. I feel like there was maybe symbolism in that, but it's weird in any way, shape, and form.
So I have to ask, since I didn't see it. So Jean kills Mystique with a white picket fence, and then Magneto asks her, is she like covered in the blood, and then goes to visit Magneto?
I think what happens is like Jean, like my memory's hazy, so
Oh.
Duna, jump in.
Yeah, I can explain a little bit. Magneto has a new Genosa in this movie. Like he is with, it's not like a super big Genosa, but it's like this camp where he's with like other mutants and he's given safe haven to these mutants. That's one of my favorite things of the movie, by the way. One of the things that put it a little bit over last stand is that Magneto having Genosa like felt right. And Jean appears in this Genosa that they didn't call Genosa, but I just call it Genosa. And Jean appears there and sees with a little bit of blood of Mystique in her shirt, and she's like asking Magneto for help to control her powers, but she doesn't tell whose blood is this. And then when she leaves, Beast comes and talks with Magneto and reveals that Jean has killed Mystique.
And she like lost control of her powers and like blew up something, and a white picket,
Yeah.
like one post of a white picket fence just like impales Mystique through the chest, and game over for her because she's a vampire. I don't.
I'm also, I'm not sure how that works with like her shape shifting and everything else. I don't know how the science there, but that seems like a little weird.
You can feel how much the actress like just doesn't want to be in the movie, so then they just kill her at the beginning.
In the weirdest way, like it's just,
and like it's Jean, right? So like she could have at least killed Mystique in like a way that looks kind of cool or something. I don't know.
I mean, it was supposed to be an accident. So,
but
yeah.
She could have accidentally like crushed her with a car or sent her flying and broke her neck.
Or
but
like
just
it
was
like
just
it could
weird.
have been like an explosion or something. But I mean, I don't know. Even that wouldn't have like made the movie good. So like whatever.
No, it wouldn't have made it good. It just would have made it maybe just a little bit more sensical.
I like when they show the phoenix as like a firebird, because they do that a few times in the movie, and I think that looked really cool. But I think that was like the best part, just seeing like the firebird.
I dislike overall that the whole thing about Jean's father not wanting her, and like that whole storyline and what Jean was going through. Like, for me, it made sense. Every other character in the movie, but yeah.
The Jean and Xavier flashbacks are like surprisingly good, I think. That's how I felt when I watched it.
Yeah, the movie really. I I watched this in the theater with my girlfriend after watching First Class, and the first thing for like half an hour of the movie, I was really liking it, like surprisingly liking it. But then it just went down for me. But yeah,
And I think that's it on the main ones.
yeah, we can start to talk about Wolverine. Yo.
So everyone makes fun of Wolverine Origins because of Deadpool, because it's weird. It's not Deadpool, and he's Baraka from Mortal Kombat for some odd reason. They even made fun of that Deadpool in Deadpool 2. I don't remember much of it. I was gonna try and rewatch it, but I literally could not find it on anything streaming. I remember being sad because I like the character of Bolt, and they put him in there, and then I think killed him like the second time he showed up on screen. That's all I really remember.
There was Gambit in there, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
Gambit was in there.
I liked Gambit in there. I liked
did too.
Gambit
Yeah,
in
me
there.
too.
I liked the opening credits sequence. Everybody likes the opening credits sequence. It's the best. It's the only good part of the movie. I remember blowing up in the theater and embarrassing myself as a complete nerd towards the end when it's clear that Emma Frost is Silver Fox's sister. So what the fuck is that? I was already not happy with their Silver Fox casting and their weird defenses of that. And then to add that on top of it, I didn't get that mad about an X-Men movie again until New Mutants.
Yeah, they really tried to jam a lot of weird references in there, and having like Cyclops be in the movie and Storm being like referenced. I think
Yeah.
it was weird and did not make a lick of sense.
Wolverine Origins is one of the X-Men movies I enjoyed more. I think it was bad in a way that was very funny to me. Yeah, I mean, I know Wolverine kind of like takes over a lot of the movies in a way that is really frustrating, but I like Wolverine and I like how um he's how he's performed by the actor. And like, I mean, the writing isn't always great, but I think the writing for Wolverine is better than for most of the characters. So like, it's a movie I can enjoy, but probably I will not rewatch it unless I'm forced to.
You can enjoy it in your memory.
And I think I don't know, I think it's so funny when Deadpool has the blades come out of his arms because like where does he store it? Like where is there room in his body for those blades?
I would have liked to see them do more with Liv Shriver's Sabretooth. I thought that was kind of a breakout. He's very good at playing that kind of asshole. And I think they could have played up some of that more instead of just throwing reference after reference, gag appearance after gag appearance. It was really weird to see what they did with the Will.i.am character based coming from the comics to that. It's a weird choice in adaptation. It's kind of weirder for me because I know that character is based on a real person, and there's a whole story about that real person and their disappearance and why they're then a comic character and so on. So I took that a little more like seriously than anyone else watching the movie. But it was also, I don't know, it felt like there's a lot of style over substance, and I hate saying style over substance. So damn you, movie, for making me say that phrase. But if any movie, defines that phrase, it's that first Wolverine movie.
Yeah, I don't remember it that much. I remember Gambit was pretty cool. Like for me, what I remember of this movie is that the minutes that Gambit appears were pretty cool. But I think I like it. Like when I saw it in theaters, I think I liked it. But yeah, but I can't bring myself to watch the Wolverine.
Oh
The
God,
next
don't.
one. I started today. I watched 20 minutes of it, and I was like, I had enough. This is weird.
It's so long. It's
I
better than
know.
Logan, but it's so long.
I know Yukio is there, so like if I
Kind
ever
of.
watch it, it will be for her. But
Kind
I
of.
probably will not watch it.
Yukio is kind of there.
Yeah.
They make her a mutant with a power that literally does not matter. Like her power, she sees the future, but she doesn't do anything with it. She makes she just has ominous conversations, and that's it. I watched it for the first time today, and it took me all morning because I kept having to pause because I was so bored. They try so hard to make that movie so serious that
Mhm.
when they throw in humor, it just doesn't mesh, and it's weird. They do weird things with the characters. It's just taking itself way too seriously for me to enjoy it, and I don't. I I it does everything that I think every X-Men movie has done badly and nothing that it did good.
And I
It's
like
like
James Mangold, the director. He's done other movies in other genres that I've really enjoyed. They're not perfect movies, but I've enjoyed them. And I can't honestly say I've enjoyed a Wolverine movie except maybe laughing at Origins.
I The only part of the movie that I actually like sat up and I watched is you get a scene where Yukio fights Viper, who is bald for some reason. They never really explain why she takes off her hair. She just literally
Snake,
just
it's the snake thing. She's Snake
literally just
Baby.
pulls off her hair and just goes up like, and then she starts fighting people. And they did that. But yeah, I could not care about any character in this movie except Yukio. And for Yukio, it was I think I'm saying that right. It was more about her aesthetic than it was about the actual character. She looks cool.
It's so strange how there are all these X-Men movies and they're so bad, cause like or like even Wolverine movies, cause like you read like Larry Hama's Wolverine where like he's there and Jubilee's there and they're like having their adventures and like it should be easy to make a good movie out of that, but they don't.
I think that if they would have taken out Yukio from this movie and replaced her with Jubilee, it would have made more sense because
Yeah,
she's very
it would.
much a sidekick character, and it just feels weird with it being her.
Well, I think the movie really trades on the tone, that Orientalist tone of early 90s American versus Japan movies. Like it was not even just that it's a bad aesthetic, but that it was like decades out of date. That
They
was like, you know, yeah, I mean, it just felt like early 90s. The Japanese are so much more advanced than us and they're invading our business territory, but they have a code of honor. And if we play by that code of honor, we blah, 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 blah.
yeah, it felt weirdly like I'm not Japanese. I don't know Japanese culture, but it still felt like it was making offensive references every time I turned around, and it was just like I'm like this feels weird, and I feel like I should not like this. And it was just odd decisions they made with that movie.
Was it
Yeah.
X2 that had Lady Deathstrike, but she never speaks?
Yes,
Okay. She's
she
in there.
spoke once. She spoke once.
She spoke once.
I'm pretty sure her only line was "kill me," because she was under mind control. And so she had a brief moment where she was free and asked Wolverine to kill her.
That's so like that just like encapsulates how the women are treated in X-Men movies.
Yeah. And also, this movie was directed and written by white men, so maybe that's
Yeah.
why it also feels like Orientalist.
Yeah.
Because it was.
I don't know. I watched 20 minutes and I was like, I'm not in for this.
Like,
Also-
not to defend the MCU, but like a lot of their movies, like there are like comic book writers who like write the scripts or like work on the scripts. Like they had, I think, Kyle and Yost or however you say that. But like for the X-Men movies, they don't have like comic book people writing them, and I think that would have been a big help.
Well, I mean, Chris Claremont never even got an invite to a premiere. He had to go as +1 of a journalist the times that he went. And it's like, just throw him a damn ticket, you know? I mean, I'm not even saying throw the airfare in. You know, you can spare a ticket. You can spare a seat.
Yeah.
It's like a real I don't know. It's just, yeah, there is definitely a real disconnect.
So Logan,
I forgot that existed.
this is one of my.
I liked it. Like as someone who doesn't like the character of Wolverine, I enjoyed that movie far more than I thought I would. I think that they tried way too hard to make it dark and make it autistic and make it like this is gonna win awards. Like they were clearly gunning for that.
Oh, yeah.
But it was a movie I enjoyed. I think that I really loved the way they did X-23. Even though if it was kind of like this is X-23 by way of 11 from Stranger Things, but I still enjoy it.
Yeah, that one.
Also, it had Victor.
Yes. Logan is my favorite one, which is no surprise, I think. And it made me cry, and it was just nice, and I liked it.
I do wonder if I liked Logan just because they finally killed Wolverine.
It is a bit melodramatic, but I mean, it's comics. I think comics movies can be melodramatic, and it's good.
It delivered it well. Unlike the Wolverine, which was trying so hard to be serious that it became boring, Logan had that same intent and that same tone, but delivered it so much better than the Wolverine did.
I like parts of Logan. I like the end of Logan. I like certain scenes in it. That trying to be serious tone doesn't bother me as much. I would love to see a different edit of Wolverine and one or of Logan, and one that takes it away from the sort of genre markers for the subgenre, because it really wants to be a particular kind of Western. It really wants to be that last hurrah movie. And I love some of those. The problem is I've seen way too many of those. And when you're consciously hitting each beat and trying that hard to be this kind of, because you want to win the same prizes that Unforgiven won, then you just end up being Unforgiven with mutant powers. And that part of it didn't quite work out for me. It's the pacing of the movie. It's when they hit the beats that they hit. So I think if they had had a different edit, I probably would love the movie.
I didn't like Logan at all, but it's the same. It's a similar reason of why I didn't like Last Stand, is that I didn't like one thing about Logan, and that like overshadowed the rest of the movie. Like probably if I would watch it again, I would like it way more. It happened with The Last Stand. I watched it again and I like it way more than the first time.
Okay.
But I really didn't like Laura here. And it just didn't feel right for me to just take away everything like harsh about that character's origin and just make it a child being experimented on. Uh, I know that Laura's origin and Laura, it's something that is pretty difficult to get on film, and I'm pretty sure about like a white man directing a movie that goes into like sexual assault and like forced child sex slavery and stuff like that would be horrible. So I'm not saying that would have been better, but I really didn't see like I just didn't see Laura here at all. Like I didn't feel like the main things that make her character like she is in the comics are not here. Like the opposite of what happens with Anna Paquin's Rogue. That I can get behind Anna Paquin's Rogue because the main things about the character are still there, but here I don't see X-23. I don't see Laura at all. But also my favorite comics from X-23 are Marjorie's ones. And I know those are the hard ones, those are the difficult to read, and those are those that goes into these topics. And I know some other people like more Tom Taylor or some other people that have come after that are less like that. But I can't see an origins of Laura without the hard bits. I feel like that's skipping like the story. So I didn't like what it had to tell about and about children being experimented on. It felt like okay, so it felt like it gave a lot of weight to like those two white dudes drama, and in contrast, I didn't feel a lot of weight in the experiment on the children. I didn't feel like that was really like as much dramatic in comparison. I I feel like that was more action beat and more cheap than the other thing. I feel like Wolverine and Xavier's feelings were more important for the movie, and that's why I didn't like it. But I'm pretty sure if I watch it again and just try to like forget that I'm not seeing Laura there at all, I probably would like appreciate the dramatic bits, especially with Wolverine, because I feel like they're done right. I feel like it's a problem of me not being attuned to it, and not of it being bad.
You just have to remember that in the X-Men world, in the Wolverine world, women and girls are not real people. And then you'll be fine. They're something that men feel bad about or feel protective of, or they're angry at them.
I like that you say that, because that is one of my biggest problems with the Deadpool movies, which I believe are what's next, is just the way they treat the main female character in that movie is just horrid.
Yeah.
Well, and it's weird because the Deadpool movies make reference to fridging explicitly in Once Upon a Deadpool. They have a whole discussion where Deadpool explains to Fred Savage what fridging is.
And then they fridge her in the second movie.
Yes. Well, because they're talking about that scene. So like they knew like that was prior to, so it was clearly a decision they made and not oh, we fell into this by accident. Like they deliberately chose, like, we know this is a problematic way to tell this story, but we're going to do it.
When it comes to Deadpool movies, because I guess we're moving on to those guys now.
I think everyone else
If
is dead.
anyone, yeah, if anyone wants to say anything more about Logan or whatever, go ahead. But if not, Deadpool is fine. Yeah. Okay.
I can't talk about the Deadpool movies without talking about them together. Because to me, the first Deadpool movie knew what Deadpool was, and they hit that mark and they delivered, and I enjoyed the first Deadpool movie. And the difference between the first and the second movie to me is the first movie felt like it was the creators laughing along with Deadpool and the fans and just enjoying it. And the second one felt like they were laughing at the fans. Like it was, all the jokes were like aimed at them, at like at us as fans. And it just felt, if it felt like it didn't have a grasp on the comics anymore, on the characters they were using. And I know that I am biased about this because Shatterstar is one of my favorite characters, and Louis Tan was such a good casting for that character, and the way they treated the character was pointless and borderline disrespectful towards the source material for that whole X-Force thing. It was a gag that they used to build hype and then threw it out as fast as they could. And I do not. The only thing about that movie I like was the casting of Domino. Not even the character of Domino, the casting of Domino. Good concept, good actress, bad writing.
I really liked both of the Deadpool movies. I didn't see the first one in theaters, but I saw the second one in theaters. I've seen both of them a few times. I think the first one is like, I feel like I like it more than like it is good. Like it isn't as good, but I'm just very fond of it just because I like the tone, and I think it's a decent story, and I don't know, I just like the irreverence. And then in the second one, I like that they're lesbians, and I like Cable.
I do love the
I-
lesbians in the second one. I forgot that part.
I
I
wish
am
we
kind
had
of
more of
oh,
the lesbians. No, that's it. I wish we had more of the lesbians.
Yeah,
I,
It's
I
like,
wish I wish we had more of the lesbians, and I also wish we had a more comic adaptation of Negasonic, because they literally just like, hey, we like this name, and then they gave her cannonballs powers.
I guess so. I didn't think of it like Cannonball's powers, but
I
yeah.
do think it's funny that in the movies they change the way she looks, but what she looks like is the embodiment of that energy in the music video. They just took the music video that the character has the name from and gave the character that aesthetic, which I did like that. That's like deep cut for me. So I am not the right audience for Deadpool in the sense that I enjoy Deadpool and I like the movies all right. I hate Deadpool fans, and like way too much of my time online is trying not to kill myself because someone with a Deadpool avatar is annoying the hell out of me. I don't like Deadpool has to be rated R because like I've been reading comics for a while and there's a whole lot of Deadpool comics that are nowhere near rated R. Like I don't know where they got this idea that Deadpool is like massive gore and sex all the time and he's cursing up a storm and like this didn't happen. Like they read a Max comic at some point and decided that was every Deadpool comic. It reminds me of like people that would say that Goku on like Cartoon Network doesn't swear enough because you know he's dropping f-bombs everywhere, and so I have issues with that fandom. I don't really fit in with that. My favorite of the Deadpool movies is the PG edit that they made for Deadpool 2, which is called Once Upon a Deadpool, in which Deadpool kidnaps Fred Savage, puts him in a recreation of the bedroom from Princess Bride, and narrates to him the story of Deadpool 2 for no other reason than he wants to talk to Fred Savage. And that's what he's got to talk about because it happened last week. And I like that because it cuts down. It's a PG or PG-13 cut, which annoys the hell out of the right people. And it's just funnier to me because every time there's a terrible storytelling choice, they just cut back to him and Fred Savage, and Fred Savage is like, that doesn't make any sense, or that's bad script writing. Fred Savage is like straight out about when they kill the girlfriend. He's just like, that's bad script writing. Like, I've been in some movies and I have an opinion about this. And that makes me laugh more than the traditional cut made me laugh. So I like the movies. I like all three of them. That one to me is more comics Deadpool to me. And in a sense, it's just because it's less violent and less trying hard to be something that I guess actual Deadpool fans really want.
one thing that happens to me with Deadpool 2 that I talked with Gabriel before is that it's technically both like okay and gay in some way. Like it's technically gay in some ways, I guess, but it feels homophobic to me. Like I don't know why, but the fact that most of the gay stuff that happens in Deadpool 2 are jokes and they're not like substantially deliberate, even if they're intended to be as something that is not only a joke, I guess. I don't know. I feel very confused about like queer rep in Deadpool too, especially because I feel like it's walking a line where everything feels like a joke. And even the couple of lesbians for me feel like they're there just to like appear for a couple of times. And that's it. And say
I,
we have lesbians. So we
I
can make jokes.
yeah, I am not a hardcore Deadpool fan. I've read an okay amount of Deadpool comics. Um, and I do feel like that fits the comics, and that is that Deadpool is canonically queer. He is pansexual.
Yeah.
It is a thing in the comics, but it's also a joke in the comics. Like Deadpool is only really queer when it's a punchline, and that carried over to the movie. It's like it's somehow both gay yet kind of homophobic all at the
Well,
same time.
Yeah,
like the
I
first, the first movie when they have the sex scene and they have the pegging joke, and that scene plays out. It's great. It's fine. It's funny. It's whatever. And those characters have a dynamic, and they're both down for whatever. Blah blah. And that's where they have to draw a line. That's a weird place to draw a line in a movie about murder and craziness and whatever. That's a weird thing to highlight in a movie like that. Like and again, it's just a conscious choice. They made a choice to make that joke. When they make the homophobic jokes in the movies, when they make the squick jokes, even if it's not really homophobic, but it's just like it's a little, whatever. They know they're doing that, and they think that's funny. I guess they think it's going to play. They think it's going to protect them. So it's a weird place for them to go.
yeah, I don't know. I was uncomfortable in the theater. Like at some times it made me laugh a lot, and on some other times I was like, I'm not sure that like delivering so little explicit and doing so many jokes does it for me. Like I know there's stuff that is explicit. I'm not saying it's not explicit, but I feel like it's not enough for all the jokes that happen. So
I think
that's
what makes me feel like I agree that the lesbians were like not there very much, but what makes me feel a little bit better about it is that they didn't do the whole like before the movie they didn't like advertise the fact that they had like gay people in the movie, like how Disney will do that and then disappoint. Like I remember like it was not even really a thing for this movie until like it came out, and there's just some gay characters and it's no big deal. So that gave me like a little bit of goodwill toward the movie. But I agree, there's like a lot of jokes that are sort of on the line of like, is this like okay or is this like sort of exploitative? And so I can definitely see why you would not be happy with that.
I kind of there's 2 points with the second movie, and I think to me that win me over, even though the movie has a lot of flaws and there's a lot of problems. And one is the child abuse angle, which I think they played very well and very strongly and very sincerely. And two is that when they introduce lesbians, they're like happy lesbians who are just there. Like I'm absolutely won over by any movie that has character, and it's this very straight world. And then there's like two lesbians who are like, hi, and that's it. They don't have to do anything more. They're gone. That's kind of sad. But that one moment, I was like, we don't see that kind of representation. And that's, that's a very low bar. That's a very low bar that many movies don't pass.
Yeah. No, I like the child abuse angle of the movie too. I like that a lot too. I think I like both Deadpool and Deadpool 2 mostly. I just feel weird in Deadpool 2. Like I had this weird reaction to it. Like I'm not sure that you're laughing with me or at me.
And is that everything everyone has to say about Deadpool?
Now we have to talk about the other movie.
Do we have to talk about New Mutants, or
No.
can we just say the opinion on New Mutants is no?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good opinion.
I'm happy with that.
there's gays. Someone needs to just edit out everything else. Just the gays, and just the rest of the movie is no. It's just.
I'm genuinely shocked that they spent that long with the movie, and they held off on releasing it for so long, and it's so racist. It's just so much racism.
It's so racist. Characters are unnecessary. Characters are bad adaptations. The plot is convoluted for no reason. I could keep going. It's weird casting for almost everyone. Just the gay storyline is good, and it was and I did like that. I was surprised by the gay storyline, and like you were saying, they didn't advertise it. It wasn't something that I didn't hear about it till I saw it, and I held off on seeing it. Like, I heard rumors that it might have been happening, and I think I saw one panel where they mentioned how important the chemistry between Danny and Rain was. But it wasn't in the commercials. Marvel didn't release a press thing like they did with Eternals about how it was groundbreaking, yada yada yada. Like, the studio didn't make a big deal of it, and I do like that. And I did like the romance arc. I think it was natural. I think it was organic. I think it worked well. Despite the movie, it worked out well. But
they just spent 2 hours trying to make me hate magic, and that's like a high crime.
They didn't need 2 hours. They did that in like the first half hour.
Yeah, I'm never gonna watch it.
It managed to make me hate magic and not care about Cannonball or Sunspot, and that is, you tried. Like, you had to put effort into that.
I can't even remember what Cannonball does in the movie. I know Sunspot works out at some point. Cannonball is
Cannonball does nothing. He has a broken arm. Sometimes he flies around and crashes into things, but not often, because most of the movie he's indoors, because that makes sense for his power set. He talks in a bad Southern accent, but doesn't really say anything.
He's not even blonde, is he?
I think he's like sandy, brown hair. But no. Horrible. I hate all the casting except for the lesbians. I dig them. And Sunspot had trauma that we don't really talk about, but it was there. I think he killed someone. I'm not sure. Has no control of what he does. Is useless. Even in the final battle, he's useless. Magic is racist and has a dragon for 2 seconds for no apparent reason that they never explain. And yeah, it's just, it's bad. It's as bad as I feared it would be.
I will never watch it, probably, unless someone makes a lesbian cut, and then I might watch that.
Just release the lesbian cut.
Super cut.
No one cares about the Snyder cut. Give us the lesbian cut. That's it.
The New Mutants lesbian cut.
That's it.
Yeah, that would be nice. So, okay, we talk about all the movies. This thing is closed. There's not gonna be any other movie, thankfully. And what do you? For last thing is, I was gonna ask you all, what do you want to see if they do adapt the X-Men in the MCU? I know they're gonna have a Disney Plus, so continuing the animated series, but I highly doubt that would tie into the MCU in any way. I think it's gonna be its own thing. So we can still talk about what would you all want to see if they adapt it to the MCU? Yeah, that could be.
I would love something along the style of the TV show The Gifted, where they took characters that aren't as big, put it in a TV show, did character work. I think we should have a show about The Gifted one day, because they do a lot of good, they do a lot of bad. But to me, it did a good job about making it about the characters and not having one character or a couple of characters choke out the rest of the cast like all the movies did. I would love it if for anyone who's seen it, I love how they did the character work in the Eternals, and I would love if someone was to carry that over to an X-Men movie.
I would love for them not to make the mutant metaphor the only sense of diversity, the only sense of oppression, the only sense of conflict in whatever they do going forward with the MCU. I want to see a diverse X-Men, and that includes giving them voices. I want to see women with lines that matter to them and not in the service of Charles Xavier or Wolverine. I want to see, that kind of representation, actual agenda. And that's like my bar I'm setting for them.
For me, first of all, I just wanted to not be racist. That's my first wish. And beyond that, I think just like if there's like writers and directors who like actually like they care about telling a story, because for a lot of the more recent X-Men movies, it doesn't feel like they care about telling a story. It feels like they just want to make like a big flashy movie, and that's not interesting to me. So just like if somebody has like a strong perspective and like actually like wants like actually cares about it, and I feel like faithfulness to the comics is like not as important as like just like a good story. Like I love faithfulness to the comics, but like that is I think secondary to just like make a good movie. I don't know.
I don't think it is possible for the MCU to put out an X-Men movie that is going to be faithful enough to the comics to satisfy the fan base. Like I just don't think it's possible, and I would rather them not try and make a good movie than try to be so accurate that it hurts the film.
That's a good point.
Duna?
Oh, okay. Full disclosure, I don't like the MCU, and I'm not watching currently. I stopped watching after half of Spider-Man Far From Home. I watched half of that movie and I had enough, and I stopped watching the MCU at that point. And I should have done earlier, because probably I would have come back from some of the recent movies, because they look better than what we had before. But the main reason that I don't like the MCU is that I feel like the broad, it's like a broad narrative. A lot of things happen over the films and they tie together, and then it starts to happen a lot of things over the films and they tie together again. That's going to happen at some point again. And I feel like the broad narrative is very pro status quo, very pro militarization, and very pro a lot of things, and very like pro American. And I just don't like the message, that the broader message of the movies. And of all the movies that we have talked about today, the X-Men movies, I kind of like more the main message than the MCU, because even if they're very flawed in like the execution, is like, oh, I like more what they have to say about the work, because sometimes they kind of talk about change and about oppression and about other things without it being finally the CIA is okay. And yeah, and so I'm not sure I want them to adapt the X-Men. that's my first thought, because the first thing that will happen if they adapt it is I'm gonna watch it even if I don't like the MCU, and I'm gonna just suffer through it, and I don't want to suffer. But if they do adapt it, I think I can get behind them doing something like adapting the Krakoa comics instead of adapting the old comics, because I don't trust the MCU to do a story about persecution and oppression, and I think that's gonna end bad. I think at some point the CIA is gonna show up, or the FBI or something, and everything is gonna be fine because they do some stuff. And yeah, I don't think I can get behind that. But if they adapt Krakoa, maybe they can do something a little bit different, in which the main source of the comic isn't persecute and hatred, but it's other thing. If they do something, I'm gonna watch it, and I'm gonna suffer, and we'll talk about it here.
Which I think is the curse of being an X-Men fan. Like we willingly go to the slaughter knowing that we're gonna get hurt, but we do it anyway. That it's part of, I guess, us.
The curse of the X-Men fans.
On that cheery note, I think we're done.
Yeah,
Free.
this was intense. So, thank you, Sri, for coming to talk about this. And I was very happy to have you, Sri, here. And the next one we're gonna have is gonna be about the Morlocks in 2 weeks with Anthony Oliveira and Danny Kinney. That's gonna be great, and we'll announce it on social media soon. And yeah, thank you, everyone. If anyone wants to say anything, okay.